Hello everyone, my name is Nicole Brown and I am a BSN or Bachelor's of Science in Nursing student at Indiana State University. You are about to watch a video about adverse childhood experiences and the long-term effects of these experiences. The population at risk is children and adolescents under the age of 18. The audience intended for the video is school nurses. The learning objectives for this presentation are as follows. We'll be able to understand and define the meaning of adverse childhood exposures. We'll be able to list the 10 categories of adverse childhood exposures, have an understanding of each category of adverse childhood exposures, and give examples of each. Understanding and being able to score the questionnaires used to screen for adverse childhood exposures. List the physical and psychological risk factors related to adverse childhood exposures. List chronic health conditions related to adverse childhood exposures. List screening and prevention strategies for adverse childhood exposures. If you could please pause this video at this time and take the attached pretest and then resume video. According to the CDC, adverse childhood experiences, or also referred to as ACEs, is used to describe types of abuse, neglect, or potentially traumatic experiences occurring before the age of 18. The 10 categories for ACEs are abuse, including psychological, physical, or sexual, household dysfunction, which could be substance abuse, mental illness, mother or stepmother being treated violently, criminal behavior in the household, or neglect, including physical and emotional neglect. The 10 categories are then made into 3 broader categories, including abuse, neglect, and household dysfunction. Abuse is exposed to the child by a parent or another adult who is living in the household. Physical abuse includes being often or frequently pushed, grabbed, shoved, or slapped. Also being hit hard enough to have marks left or have caused injury. Psychological or emotional abuse are the child being continuously sworn at, insulted, or put down. Also being threatened that there will be physical harm to the child. Sexual abuse is being touched or fondled in a sexual way. Having the adult request the child to touch them in a sexual way. Attempt any form of intercourse, and then actually having any form of intercourse. Neglect, physical neglect, is the child not having enough food to eat, not having clean clothes to wear to school, not having a clean living space. And then emotional neglect is the child not feeling that they're good enough, not feeling loved, things like that. And then household dysfunction. Substance abuse is living with anyone who has a substance abuse problem, and this includes alcohol or street drugs. Having any form of mental illness, so living with a person who's depressed, mentally ill, or has attempted suicide. The mother being treated violently, which includes the mother and the stepmother. Sometimes or often being pushed, grabbed, slapped, kicked, bitten, hit with a fist, or hit with something else hard, or having things thrown at her, or the mother ever being repeatedly hit over a few minutes or more, threatened with a weapon, or injured with a weapon. Having a parent who has been arrested or gone to prison is criminal behavior in the household. And then lastly, living in a home where the parents have been separated or divorced would fall under this category. There are many different questionnaires that screen for ACEs in adults and children. The patient will get a survey for yes or no questions, and they'll get 1 point for each category that they answer yes to. So the survey can score from 0 to 10. For example, if the patient answers yes, they are frequently shoved, they get 1 point for physical abuse. If they also answer yes, there has been an injury with this physical abuse, they do not get an additional point. They still get 1 point for the category. The higher the score at the end, the more at risk the patient is. ACEs lead to negative outcomes in adulthood, including poor physical and mental health, substance abuse, and risky behavior. Physical and psychological risk factors include smoking, obesity, sedentary lifestyle, alcoholism, illicit drug use, injected drug use, 50 or more sexual partners, history of sexually transmitted diseases, episodic depressed mood, and attempted suicide. Also included here are chronic diseases, which are ischemic heart disease, cancer, stroke, chronic bronchitis or emphysema, skeletal fracture, hepatitis or jaundice, and self-rated poor or fair health. I got this pyramid off the CDC website, and I attached the picture here just because I thought it gave a good representation of ACEs and what can happen from that point on in life. And just showing that, there are some social, emotional, cognitive impairments, risky behaviors, and then ultimately can lead to early death. I pulled this graph off the CDC website just to show how common ACEs are. As you can see, only 36% had 0 ACEs, 26% had 1, 16% had 2, 9.5% had 3, and 12.5% had 4 or more. When the patient has 4 or more ACEs, the risk factors increase dramatically. I wanted to include some prevention strategies in this presentation. So looking at primary prevention, the CDC is working on a program to hopefully prevent ACEs from happening. This is not an easy thing to do. This is more about social issues than medical issues like getting a vaccination. Some of their ideas are having a family-friendly workplace, preschool enrichment with family engagement, at-home visits early on in childhood, and then behavioral parent training programs. Secondary prevention, the best option is going to be the screening tools, using questionnaires like the ones we looked at during the presentation, recognizing the population at risk, doing what we can to lessen the effect of these ACEs later on in life. And then for tertiary prevention, as we know, the problem already exists. The person already has these chronic conditions or this mental illness that's been affected by the ACEs. So our goal is going to be to decrease any further damage, which is going to include things like exercise, alcohol, drugs, smoking cessation, counseling and therapy, things like that. Here are some great resources if you would like to get more information on ACEs. And then also please remember to take your post test that is attached below. And thank you very much for watching.